Hello, this is Darius with Divine Numerology. Thanks for tuning in, and thanks for listening. We got some nice things lined up for you today. We have Mr. Otto from Mr. Otto's bookstore on the Miracle Mile. He's got some incredible story to share with us today. And then we're going to be talking about the gene keys as well, and some other numerology topics along with the number of the day, and any questions that you might have, feel free to post. So don't go anywhere. We'll be right back.
KXVS on 92.1. Coming soon.
Hey, there's my son.
Hey, Dad.
What's wrong with your voice?
There is nothing wrong with my voice.
Well, it's just sort of.
Hello, Dad.
Susan? Guys, I think it's about time to get in the car and maybe see some green things.
What are these green things you speak of?
This weekend, unplug. Getting closer to nature can get you closer to your family. To find the forest nearest you, go to discovertheforest.org. Brought to you by the U.S. Forest Service and the Ad Council.
Hey, there's my son. You've been in your room all morning.
Hey, Dad.
Matt, what's wrong with your voice?
There is nothing wrong with my voice.
Oh, well, it's just sort of.
I have been playing my video games and electronic games for so many hours.
Well, it sounds like it might be time for you to take a break, or.
Hello, Dad.
Susan?
I have been watching TV and text messaging all morning. Yay, electronics. Yay, yay, yay.
Guys, I think it's about time to get in the car and take a little trip. Maybe see some trees, some green things.
What are these green things you speak of?
This weekend, unplug. Take your family to the forest. There's nothing in the world like experiencing nature firsthand. Trees, paths, bluebirds, streams. Getting closer to nature can get you closer to your family. To find the forest nearest you, go to discovertheforest.org. Brought to you by the U.S. Forest Service and the Ad Council.
Confessions of a Potentially Perfect Parent, brought to you by AdoptUsKids.org.
I might look like an adult, like a person who could possibly be a parent, but I have no idea how to talk like one.
KXVS.
And everyone knows
The
that.
Voice of Stockton, live. The Voice of Stockton at Stone Soup Studio. KXVS.org.
Awesome. We are back. This is Darius with Divine Numerology, and we are here today on this beautiful day, Friday the 13th. What's that all about? What does that mean? Man, we heard so much stuff about that. So we're going to get into that in a minute. And we also have this book called The Gene Keys by Richard Rudd. It's a part of a movement. It's The Gene Keys, Unlocking the Higher Purpose Hidden in Your DNA. And it utilizes some numerology concepts, and it incorporates the I Ching. But before we get into that, we have a very special guest with us here today. And this gentleman, he has been on the Miracle Mile for quite some time. We have Mr. Otto from Mr. Otto's bookstore, the children bookstore. And he's here today because he's got something really awesome to share with us. And, Mr. Otto, I want to thank you for being on the show with us today.
It's always my pleasure.
And you have something for us, right?
Yes, I do. As a matter of fact, today I'm going to read The Real Princess, a mathemagical tale. So this is about numbers, if you will. It's written by Brenda Williams and is available through Barefoot Books. Shall I begin?
Yes, please.
Long ago and far away, a king and queen had 3 sons. The eldest son was called Primo, the second son was called Secundo, and the third son was called Terzo. The king and queen had 1 butler, 2 footmen, 3 maids, 4 horses, 5 grooms, 6 dogs, 7 gardeners, 8 chimney sweeps, 9 cooks, and 10 soldiers. Now, the king had a counting house in which he kept 3 bags of gold. Each bag contained 180 gold coins. One day my sons will marry, the king said to himself. These bags of gold will give them a fine start in life. Now, it was the custom at that time that the eldest prince should marry first, but only if he could find a bride fit to be the next queen. "You must find yourself a real princess," said his father every morning as he tucked into his royal breakfast. "Only a real princess will do." So Primo set off to find a wife. He searched far and wide, but he found fault with every princess he met. "Her nose is too pointy, and she's much too bossy to be a real princess," he sighed. "Her feet are too floppity, and she won't look me in the eye," he complained. The truth was, he simply could not tell if a girl was a real princess or not. Primo returned home full of gloom. "I wish so much to marry a real princess, Mother," he sighed, "but how can I tell if she's real or not?" "Leave it to me," said the Queen. "I have a test that will prove beyond a doubt whether she is a real princess or not." Now, you may like to know that no one else in the castle knew. The Queen, too, had a counting house. It was a small, shabby shed hidden away at the back of the gooseberry bush, and in it she kept 9 golden peas. When the Queen opened the door of the shed, the peas gleamed in the darkness. The Queen smiled as she counted them, for she knew a secret about those peas. The next day, a terrible storm came. It was so wet and wild that the 10 soldiers and the 7 gardeners had to abandon their duties and come inside for shelter. And then, just as the storm was at its worst, Terzo heard someone knocking frantically, "Knock, knock, knock," on the castle door. Standing outside was a young girl, and she was in a sorry state. The rain had drenched her clothing right through, and her hair fell in dripping straggles down to her waist. But as soon as their eyes met, Terzo's heart skipped a beat, and there was a spring in his step as he ushered her inside. That evening, the young visitor washed and dressed and sat down to dinner with the King and Queen and their 3 sons. "Who are you?" asked Primo. "My name is Numerica. Princess Numerica, actually," said the girl shyly. The Queen studied her through narrowed eyes. Then, while everyone else drank lobster soup made by the 9 palace cooks, she slipped away to prepare a bed. She asked her 3 maids to bring up 6 mattresses and 7 feather beds from the linen room. When the bed was ready, the Queen tucked 5 golden peas under the bottom mattress. The next morning at breakfast, the Queen asked the girl, "How did you sleep, my dear?" "Oh, wonderfully, thank you," her guest replied. "I did not wake until I heard the cockerel crow." The Queen shook her head slowly. Then she went to the bedroom and threw the 5 peas out of the window. But Terzo was delighted. "She is princess enough for me," he said. "I love her just the way she is." So the king took Terzo to his counting house and gave 1 of the bags of gold to his youngest son. The young prince and the princess, who was not quite a real princess, married and lived happily ever after. Now when the king went to his counting house, he counted only 2 bags of gold, and when the queen went to her counting house, she had only 4 golden peas to count. One day a dense, damp fog came down over the kingdom. The castle was hidden in a swirling, dark mist, and the paths seemed to merge into the bushes. Just when the fog was at its thickest, there was a loud knocking. Knock, 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 on the castle door. This time, Secundo went to open it. Standing outside was a young girl, and she was in a sorry state. Her dress had been torn to shreds by brambles. Her arms were cut and scratched and bruised, and her hair was tangled and matted with leaves and burrs. But as soon as he set eyes on her, Secundo felt his heart turn a somersault. That evening the young visitor washed and dressed and tended to her cuts and bruises. Then she sat down to dinner with the king and queen and their 2 sons. "Who are you?" asked Primo. "I am Princess Calcula," replied the girl in a rather grand voice. "My parents live in a palace that is twice this size, and they have 3 times as many servants." The queen looked at her guest carefully. She thought they may have at last found a real princess, for the girl had been very brave about her injuries, and she appeared to be very well off. While Princess Calcula told everyone about her family's many servants, the queen slipped away to prepare a bed. This time her 3 maids brought up 8 mattresses and 9 feather beds from the linen room, and the queen tucked 3 golden peas beneath the bottom mattress. The next morning at breakfast, the queen asked the girl, "How did you sleep, my dear?" "Oh, wonderfully, thank you," the guest replied. "I did not wake until I heard the cockerel crow." The queen shook her head slowly, and she went to the window and threw the 3 golden peas out the window. But Secundo was delighted. "She is princess enough for me," he said. "I love her just the way she is." So the king took Secundo to his counting house and gave one of the 2 remaining bags of gold to his son. The young prince and princess, who was not quite a real princess, but very nearly a real princess, married and lived happily ever after. Now, when the king went to his counting house, he counted only 1 bag of gold. And when the queen went to her counting house, she had only 1 golden pea left. That summer, a heat wave descended upon the kingdom. The wide rushing river sparkled as it flowed through the valley. Butterflies danced in the sunlight, and flowers opened their petals wide. Primo was riding back to the castle after another failed journey to find a real princess when he heard someone singing. There, sitting in the shade of a tall oak tree, was a young girl. She was weaving flowers into a garland for her hair. She smiled at the prince and wished him a safe journey. But Primo had no intention of going 1 step further. He quickly dismounted and tied up his horse. "Who are you?" he asked. Let me see. Today my name's Geometria," she said. "What's yours?" "Primo, Prince Primo, as a matter of fact. Are you a princess by any chance?" The girl raised her left eyebrow and looked him straight in the eye. "You'll have to judge that for yourself," she said. "Why don't you stop asking questions and come exploring instead?" So the 2 of them wandered the woods together, watching the doves and butterflies come and go and talking of many things. When evening fell, they rode back to the castle together. That night, the young visitor washed and dressed and sat down to dinner with the king and queen and their 1 son. "Thank you so much for inviting me to stay," she said, with a voice that rang like silver bells. "I hope you will all come and visit my family one day soon." The queen smiled as she listened. She only wanted the best for her son, and their visitor was enchanting. But was she a princess? While the rest of the party ate their ice cream sundaes, which had been created to a secret recipe by the 9 palace cooks, the queen slipped away to prepare a bed. This time, her 3 maids brought up 9 mattresses and 10 feather beds from the linen closet. This time, the queen tucked just 1 golden pea beneath the bottom mattress. The next morning at breakfast, the queen asked the girl, "How did you sleep, my dear?" "Oh, I'm sorry to complain when you've been so kind to me," her guest said, "but although I had 9 mattresses and 10 feather beds, I felt most uncomfortable all night, and I am black and blue all over." The queen looked at her eldest son and said, "She must indeed be a real princess, my son," she said, "for only a real princess would feel just 1 golden pea through 9 mattresses and 10 feather beds. You have found your true love at last." Then she went to the bedroom and threw the pea out of the window. So the king took his eldest son to his counting house and gave him the last bag of gold. And the queen went to her counting house, but of course she had no peas left. For although she had once had 9 peas, she had used 5 peas for the first girl, 3 peas for the second girl, and 1 pea for the third girl, and each time she had flung them out the window. But the queen smiled, for she knew a secret about those peas. The prince and the princess, who truly was a real princess, and would someday be queen, married and lived happily ever after. The end. Almost, but not quite. Actually, that is not quite the end of the story. For now the king had no money left in his counting house, as he had given all of it to his sons. That night he asked the queen, "How shall we manage, my dear? We have so many faithful servants who look after us. How shall we feed and pay them?" "Come with me," said the queen. So the king followed the queen into the garden. There, beneath the window of the bedroom, the 9 golden peas had each taken root and grown into 9 tall plants. But on just one of the plants shone lots of golden pea pods. "This is from the pea that Princess Geometria slept on," smiled the queen. "That young woman is worth her weight in gold. Mark my words." She picked a pod, and inside it glowed 9 golden peas. And she picked another pod and found 9 more. Then she picked 7 more pods and handed them to the king. "My dear," she said softly, "I think we have quite enough for our needs." The king was astonished and flabbergasted and speechless with delight. He hugged the queen and danced her all around the castle grounds. And the 1 butler, 2 footmen, 3 maids, 4 horses, 5 grooms, 6 dogs, 7 gardeners, 8 chimney sweeps, 9 cooks, and 10 soldiers all joined in the dancing. And this is the real end. So let's check your counting skills. How many animals live in the castle? To answer that, you'll have to read the book The Real Princess, A Mathemagical Tale by Brenda Williams, available from Barefoot Books at Mr. Otto's bookstore. Thank you.
Thanks. Thank you very much for reading that, Mr. Otto. And thanks again for being on the show.
Always a pleasure.
You know, so that was Mr. Otto reading an awesome book. And if you guys want to know about that book and you want to know how many animals there were in the castle, then you should definitely go and pick up this book, A Mathemagical Princess, A Real Princess, A Mathemagical Tale, by Barefoot Books. And you can get this at Mr. Otto's bookstore right here on the Miracle Mile. So we're going to go to break. Thank you guys for tuning in. We'll be right back. We're going to be talking about the gene keys, and we're going to be also going into the number of the day and what it means. Stay tuned. We'll be right back.
KXVS on 92.1. Coming soon.
Warm, stagnant weather may be the catalyst for ground-level ozone, but you can make a difference. From the San Joaquin Valley Air District, this is your Healthy Air Living Report. The valley's bowl-like shape and weather do help create the perfect conditions to breed high levels of smog. But the emissions we create are the main ingredient of this type of air pollution. What you do on a daily basis does make a difference. So help us reduce harmful emissions by living a healthy air life and thinking about where you can reduce your pollution-producing activities. We must leave no stone unturned when searching for ways to clean our valley's air and protect public health. For a list of ideas on how you can help, visit healthyairliving.com. That's healthyairliving.com. This has been your Healthy Air Living Report from the Valley Air District.
What's up, what's up, what's up, everybody? This is your boy Marcellus.
This your girl Ronnie.
It's Tim Hawley.
And Al X.
And we're coming at you with the KXVS
Morning Show.
Hi everyone, this is Dr. Julie Dameron, local veterinarian for over 20 years. I am so excited about my new radio show, Tales and Tips, on Tuesday morning at 10 a.m. on Facebook, YouTube, Voice of Stockton, and KXVS Radio. I will discuss relevant issues affecting animals and pet owners today, how to avoid common problems, and how to extend the quality of life for your cherished companions. As a community advocate, I will also discuss important social issues that affect our city. I plan to showcase organizations and heroes who are doing amazing things to help others. Remember to tune in every Tuesday morning at 10, starting soon.
Welcome to the afternoon entertainment hour at OJ's Juice Bar, and here's today's juice.
Listen to OJ's Juice Bar, Sundays at 4 p.m. on KXVS, the Voice of Stockton.
What's up, everybody? This is your boy Marcellus.
This is your girl Ronnie.
It's Tim Hawley.
And Al X.
And we're coming at you with the KXVS
Morning Show.
KXVS 92.1 coming soon. KXVS.
Hello, and we are back. This is Darius with Divine Numerology, and we're talking about the number of the day. Today is the 13th. And today is not just any 13th. Today is the Friday the 13th. And they got a scary movie coming out today on Friday the 13th. And so what's this whole story about the Friday the 13th? Because I'm sure that a lot of you out there have heard some interesting things about it. That it's bad luck and it's scary. And, bad things happen on the 13th of a Friday. But is it really true? That's a great question. And that's a question that I'm going to talk about. So when you think about the number 13, it has actually quite a history. It's so funny how a number can have a history, but it's true, it does. The number 13 became associated with bad luck. However, before these times, the number 13 has always had a great significance with ancient cultures. It is a powerful number. In fact, the number 13 is associated with an ancient scripture. And that scripture goes, "He who understands the number 13, to him power and dominion will be given." And it's quite a powerful number vibration. It's made up of 1 and 3. 1 is the individual. 1 is the self. 1 relates to the sun. Here I got the sun bracelet right here because I'm a 1 life path. But it relates to the sun. And then we have the number 3, which relates to expansion, creation, expression, and sensitivity. So when we combine the 3 and the 1 and the 3, 13, it's the expression of new ideas, literally, which create 4, a solid structure, a foundation, something concrete, something that actually exists. But since the vibration of 13 is such a powerful one, it usually encompasses the destruction of a previously existing condition or circumstance. And mostly one that no longer served its purpose, one that lost meaning, or wasn't serving people well, but something that needed to go. So in that way, 13 represents transformation, which is so significant. You think about the number 13 in the ancient cards known as the tarot. 13 is associated with the death card, and the concept behind the death card is the same concept that I mentioned just now about transformation, which is why, when people see that card, the death card, they have a tendency to get alarmed. And that's part of the reason why it has developed that bad luck, quote unquote, type of vibe, type feeling toward it, is because of that misunderstanding there. But in reality, that it was not talking about a literal death, but a transformation. And it's an external transformation of some kind in the material world, and it can also relate to a transformation inside of you, or you as a person going through a process of transformation, in effect dying to the old way that you used to be, dying to the old way that we used to be, and taking on this new way of being, this new consciousness. It could even be said that when a person when someone raises their consciousness, or they become more awakened or more enlightened on something, they die to their older self and they're reborn, similar to how the caterpillar becomes the butterfly through dying in the process of the cocoon. It goes through transformation. So that's what the 13th represents. It has an incredibly strong, very dynamic and masculine vibration numerically to it. And when it's pictured on the number 13 card in the tarot, the death card, it's pictured with a skeleton, with a scythe. And we get that's where we get the concept, the idea of the Grim Reaper in some respects, as that person who goes and holds people accountable, or for atonement, for it's just time for them to go. In the sense, he's heralding the time of transformation coming. So interesting that's, because we had Betty on last Friday, and she was talking about Dia de los Muertos, the Day of the Dead, and they use the skeleton as one of the symbols in that tradition. And the skeleton, as opposed to symbolizing physical, literal death, but more of a transformative fashion, more of a transformative death, and taking on a new personality or a new way of being, or reinventing yourself. So that's what we have for the 13th. Now, how did it become, besides the tarot, how did it become associated with this bad thing, this bad luck? Well, looking at history, the role of certain religious teachings had a big part to play in the perception of the number 13 and of its significance. It can be said by some that the church, or some members in it, developed a fear around that particular number because of being aware of its power. In fact, that number is so powerful. If you guys have a notepad and pen by you, you can write down, spell out this word here. I'll spell it out to you. It's a 5-letter word. B like Bravo, I, B, L, E. That word is the Bible. So when you add that word, according to Chaldean numerology, the B is 2, the I is 1, the B is 2, the L is 3, and the E is 5. When you add all 5 of those letters up, you get 13. The number 13. The Bible equals the number 13. Now, if you take a look at that fact alone, and how much of a powerful effect that particular word, not just the word, but the book itself, has had in changing the minds of people, transforming people's lives. And the Bible is known as a sword. It's called a sword. And it's a double-edged sword even. It compares it to a double-edged sword. There's many things you can do that have been done with the Bible. So that double-edged sword throughout history has been used in ways that have benefited man in great ways, in humanitarian respects, helping to love and create more love. And it's also been used by certain individuals in the past to preach things that are not harmonious with love. But why did I focus on love on that? Because another interesting thing to note, again with the number 13, if you take the Bible book, 1 Corinthians. For those of you out there listening who have a Bible by you, it's 1 Corinthians. If you look in the 13th chapter of 1 Corinthians, and if you look in the 13th verse of chapter 13 of 1 Corinthians, you'll hear it say that the greatest of all these things is love. And that's very powerful. It's at 1 Corinthians 13:13. So we have 13 prominently appearing. You anywhere you look, you notice that Jesus had 12 disciples, but many times people don't take a look at Jesus as being the 13th of that group. It's just little interesting things to think about. 12 seasons of the year. Well, what's the 13th? Or not 12 seasons, 12 months. And then we have the Jewish calendar actually had 13 months. A lot of people didn't know that. I didn't know that, but that was quite interesting when I found that out. So it's just a universal number. It even goes down to the tree of life. The tree of life even. When we're talking about the spheres on the tree of life and how the number 13 interacts with those, where just all the different places it appears around us. But in particular in the book, the Bible, is just 13, that number. To him who understands the meaning of that number, to him power and dominion will be given, whether that's in a positive way or a negative. Certain political entities, people that are very high in office. In fact, I'll just say it. Donald Trump, he has a 13 life path. And so the number 13, when utilized, can be used to accomplish things. Some people use these numbers consciously, and then some people use these numbers without knowing. Whether or not you do, whichever one you do, whether consciously or unconscious, the numbers will work. And they carry a particular vibration that can be used and taken advantage of to yield the desire of one's wishes. So that's a little bit about the number of the day. That's quite a bit to go into for the number, Friday the 13th. So we're going to go to a quick break, and when we get back, we're going to touch on the Gene Keys and see what this is about by Richard Rudd, Unlocking the Higher Purpose Hidden in Your DNA. We'll be right back. Stay tuned to Divine Numerology.
My name is Josh, and you're listening to KXVS, the voice of Stockton, 92.1 FM.
Confessions of a Potentially Perfect Parent, brought to you by AdoptUsKids.org.
I might look like an adult, like a person who could possibly be a parent, but I have no idea how to talk like one. And everyone knows that if you want to be a parent, you have to sound good when you say things like, "Don't make me turn this car around," or "because I said so," or "don't make me come back there." I don't even really know what those things mean, but I know that I actually believed my parents when they said them to me. How did they manage to sound so convincing? Here we go. "Don't make me come back there." Oh, no, that's not tough enough at all. Kids can sense weakness. "Don't make me come back there." Ooh, yeah, that's better. In fact, that kind of sounded like my dad. Weird.
You don't have to be perfect to be a perfect parent. There are thousands of teens in foster care who would love to listen to you practice your dad voice. Call 1-888-200-4005 or visit AdoptUsKids.org for more information. This message brought to you by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services, Adopt Us Kids, and the Ad.
Today in school, I learned a lot. In chemistry, I learned that no one likes me. In English, I learned that I'm disgusting. And in physics, I learned that I'm a loser.
Today in school, I learned that I'm ugly and useless. And in gym, I learned that I'm pathetic and a joke. In history, I learned that I'm trash.
Today in school, I learned that I have no friends. In English, I learned that I make people sick. And at lunch, I learned that I sit on my own because I smell. In chemistry, I learned that no one likes me.
In biology, I learned that I'm fat and stupid. And in math, I learned that I'm trash.
The only thing I didn't learn in school today?
The only thing I didn't learn today?
The only thing I didn't learn?
Is why no one ever helps.
Kids witness bullying every day. They want to help, but they don't know how. Teach them how to stop bullying and be more than a bystander at stopbullying.gov. A message from the Ad Council.
KXVS LP Stockton.
Hello, this is Darius, and we're back with Divine Numerology on today, Friday the 13th. One other thing, my son Damien was born on Friday the 13th back in 2008. And also Jessica's sister was also born on Friday the 13th. So it's definitely not a bad luck. In fact, if you ask anyone born on that day, they'll tell you that it's actually very lucky for them. 13 is not a bad luck number. It is a very positive, powerful number. So work with it if you can. Now, moving on to the gene keys. So what's this, man? You got this is interesting stuff. This Gene Keys book. It's by Richard Rudd, Unlocking the Higher Purpose Hidden in Your DNA. Well, this is where numerology, astrology, the I Ching, this is where these take another turn into our DNA. How does numerology fit in line with our DNA? How does astrology fit in line with our DNA? Is there a way to alter or change our DNA to improve it? What about certain hereditary things that have been carried down to us from our previous ancestors? Certain traits and characteristics. Well, that's what this talks about. It also talks about your life purpose. It talks about your life's work. It talks about relationships and developing yourself through your relationships. In fact, it redefines relationships. It says, relationships are great in that, they give you that when it comes to intimate relationships. They give you the romance, they give you the companionship, and they give you these things, but it redefines it as in saying that your relationship, this is now your growth partner. And that's kind of a word I thought of. So it's like whoever you're with isn't just your husband, wife, boyfriend, girlfriend, fiance. They are your growth partner. Because one of the points that it brings out in this book is that the most rapid path toward self-development and self-growth is through relationships, through a relationship with another person, especially our intimate relationships. Why? Because everybody is a reflection of ourself. The quality or characteristic that most stands out in the person in front of us, we see it because we have it. That goes for weaknesses as well as strengths. And this speaks about that. So the way it works, if you guys want to know more about the Gene Keys, after you're done or while you're on with me, while you're on tuned in, go to genekeys.com. Go to the website, Gene Keys. It's spelled Gene, then Keys, Keys. I bet some of you who didn't see this or before I spelled it thought I was saying Gene Keys from Scooby-Doo, because that's what That's what it sounds like. It's like, oh, Gene Keys, you know, but it's spelled GeneKeys.com. Go there, and they'll let you take a free quiz, they'll create what's called a hologenetic profile for you. And it's based on you entering your birthday, the time of your birth, and the location of that. And what it does, it uses a concept coming from a book called Human Design. That's also another good book to check out, Human Design. It uses a concept from the Human Design, and it corresponds it with the ancient Chinese book of wisdom called the I Ching, or I Ching, depending on how you pronounce it. And it uses these to create this hologenetic profile, because what's so amazing about it is that the book, the I Ching, is an ancient book of wisdom that people would use to consult as an oracle. They would ask it questions. And it's definitely a book worthy of study, but it has 64 what it calls hexagrams. And what this book, the Gene Keys, talks about is that these 64 hexagrams correspond to 64 different parts in our DNA. In fact, when you take this, when you go online and you type this up for yourself, you'll find that, you know, after you do this, it will give you a nice little printout for free that you can look up. You or not look up, you'll have it. You can print it out, and it'll give you some understanding of what that is. Then if you decide that you want to actually purchase this book, it's the Gene Keys right here, Richard Rudd, Unlocking the Higher Purpose Hidden in Your DNA. If you decide that you want to explore further, you can definitely do that, and it will give you a lot of insight. I'll show you. It's a nice little book, It's and you can, you know, pick it up at a used bookstore or something like that, or see if you can order it online. But it goes over in depth each one of the keys. In fact, my life purpose, it explains. I'll read to you mine in here that I came with, and that's the 63rd Gene Key. It's has to do with my life's work, and I'll read a little bit to you. But first, before I do that, the author of this book, he mentioned that you can tell a lot about a person. You can tell a lot about a person by their strengths and their weaknesses. And what you can tell about them is if a person is fidgeting around and they can't keep still, they're just constantly moving and constantly moving, and they just have trouble controlling themselves because they just, well, you can probably tell from that person that one of their gifts will probably be stillness. That's the ironic part about it, is each one of these Gene Keys is a gift. It speaks to a gift that we have inherently within ourselves. Now, each of these gifts comes with a shadow. And the shadow is the lower part of that which we're demonstrating. In mine, the gift that I have is inquiry, or the curiosity to ask questions and seek answers, and to keep having a bigger question mark, a bigger question mark, a bigger question mark. The shadow is doubt for mine. So my shadow is doubt, and then my inquiry, my gift is inquiry. And it shows how to use this shadow, how to use doubt in a way that's constructive. And by looking at how I've interacted and how I do things and operate on a daily basis, I can tell you from personal experience that what it says is very true, and it resonates very deeply with me. And it takes it even further by explaining. It gives you the physiology along with that associated. In mine particularly, it's the pineal gland, or the otherwise known as the third eye. And then it talks about amino acids for each particular one, amino acids that are contained in the DNA that it specifically corresponds to. and in this case, this particular key would be proline. We all have so many different, we have more than one gene key. Mine is, there's not just one for me, the 63rd. There's a whole chart that it prints up for you that you'll see when you actually go there. It's genekeys.com. And that's where you'll be able to put this, go on there. In fact, it's not, if you want to find this, it's Gene Keys, www.genekeysgoldenpath.com. Go there and you'll be able to obtain a free hologenetic profile and begin that particular journey. Now, one more thing I'll share is, along with the gift and the shadow, there's this thing called a siddhi. This is, it comes from a Sanskrit word which means divine gift. So each person starts on the weaker end, the lower end, in the shadow. And they're to progress till they turn that shadow into the gift. They experience the gift. Then, after contemplating and developing it and thinking about it more, they will start to exude what's called the siddhi, which is the divine gift. And in my case, for the 63rd gene key, which is mine, the divine gift that is for me is truth. So it progresses from doubt to inquiry to truth. And it explains how this all comes about. You can see in my book, I got it all highlighted. I've been really into this and seeing, what it has in store. And I'll tell you, it definitely creates some serious distinctions for a person. And it helps to redefine a lot of things. Redefining our faulty ways of looking at factors that go on in our life, situations, circumstances, places, people, and totally reevaluates it. When you do this, when you go on there to when you go to www.genekeysgoldenpath.com, you'll find that when you set up your hologenetic profile, it'll show you life's purpose. It'll show you something that's called that's the initial part, the activation sequence. Then you have what's called the Venus sequence, and that's dealing with your relationships. Then you have the third one, and that's referred to as the Pearl sequence, and that's referring to prosperity. What it is, what your life gift, how to channel that in a way that will give you and lead into your fulfillment and your prosperity, your prospering as a result of you doing your life work, your vocation, what it is that you'll actually enjoy doing. Very incredible journey. I'm just on the beginning. And for those of you who decide that you actually do want to go to check that out at the Gene Keys, the www.genekeysgoldenpath.com, to go and get your hologenetic profile made. It's very insightful, rewarding journey. And feel free to purchase the book online or get it at a used bookstore, anywhere you can find it, so that you can start it and just start learning about it. I've watched some of the YouTube videos of the author, Richard Rudd, really awesome guy. And he's just a very down-to-earth, humble person, easy to listen to when I'm watching those videos. So that's what we have for the Gene Keys. The book here, Unlocking the Higher Purpose Hidden in Your DNA. I have a book that I want to introduce. One moment. And this book is, I've spoken about it before, The 5-Minute Lover by Richard Andrew King. And this book is really good for those of you who, like I mentioned in this Gene Keys book, it says that the fastest, most rapid way to actual self-growth is through relationships. And this particular book, going alongside that same theme, shows you how you can apply numerology and find where you guys match numerologically with the lessons that you're to teach people from numerology, from that standpoint, where you're lacking and where your partner's lacking, where you make up for it and where your partner makes up for it, and how you guys can mesh and mix together and create something really unique. And the fascinating thing about the gene keys, and we'll definitely go more into this later in the future, is that each one of these 64 keys corresponds to one of the hexagrams in this book known as the I Ching. Have it on the side right here, the I Ching. And it's like I mentioned, now each one of these hexagrams in this book corresponds to a tarot card. Each one of the tarot cards corresponds to a specific numeric vibration. So it all traces down to calculating what numbers are in your life path. Then I take that and go find the corresponding tarot card, and take that and find the corresponding hexagram in the I Ching. Then I take that and you can take that and find out what's the corresponding gene key. And then it tells you the specific DNA in your life path, specific traits and characteristics passed down to you through your life path. That's amazing. All the things that you can do with this, it's endless possibilities. But that's what we're talking about for this show today, guys. I hope you guys enjoyed this, and I know I did. And if you guys have any questions, feel free to message in the box. You can message me at Darius Oliver. Stay tuned. Tomorrow we're going to be in Oakland, and we're going to be at an event hosted by Detrina, and hosted by Aquila and Paradise. And we're going to be there in Oakland doing numerology readings, and also me and Jessica are going to be doing angelic Reiki healings as well. So if you guys are out in that area, Oakland area, we will be talking to you tomorrow. Message me if you have any questions, and we'll be able to answer you. You guys have an awesome day, and peace. This is Darius with Divine Numerology. Enjoy.
You're listening to KXVS on 92.1, coming